Hi everyone. My literature review is on corporate taxes in Ireland. And so my first slide, what's a corporate tax? Why are they so important? So I have here the corporate taxes for United States, United Kingdom, China, 3 pretty big countries. They're all in their 20s. And Ireland, little Ireland, is at 12.5%, which makes Ireland a tax haven for corporate taxes. And tax havens are basically locations where you pay very little tax. History. 1990 to 2003, the most important years for the Irish corporate tax, because it started in the 50s and slowly over the decade to the 2000s, it went into the 30s and the 20s and then the teens until it finally stopped at 12.5%, which is very extreme for a corporate tax. The double Irish scheme. This is one of the most popular schemes that they had going on until 2020 when it was officially done. But basically, you'd have 2 corporations, Corporation A and Corporation B. One would be based in Ireland and one would be based in another tax haven which had a 0%, usually Bermuda. So this one would be Irish. They both have Irish owners, but one would technically be in Ireland, one would technically be in Bermuda. So since this one has a 12.5 corporate tax and this one has a 0% corporate tax, they would send most of the money to the 0% and only a little bit of the money to the 12.5, so they avoid a lot of these taxes. There is also a Dutch sandwich, as they call it, and that's when there's a third company aside from these 2, and basically they don't have withholding taxes, or they have very low. So instead of paying a big tax to get this Irish money out of Ireland, they would send it to the Dutch, and then the Dutch would not have to pay a huge tax to get that money to the Bermuda one. There were a lot of regulatory gaps and weak anti-abuse measures, such as the prevalence of the double Irish in the offshore companies. They had a lot of offshore companies, which, again, the double Irish. And Ireland really didn't have any specific measures that counteracted these schemes until the EU did finally push back and say, hey guys, we really need to do this. So that was basically 2015 was the end of a lot of these tax things. So a lot of the Irish domestic profits were coming from international companies like Apple and Google, who had their headquarters in Dublin and Cork, but they were still American companies. So if this corporate tax goes up more, then these companies might pull out of Ireland and go to a better country, which could be detrimental for the Irish economy. And internationally, this could change the economy for another country or wherever they move, whether that be the United States, another European country, or another tax haven. Gaps in literature. I found that a lot of these literature reviews were from the 2000s. Not a lot were very recent and covered the current events that happened with the corporate tax in Ireland, because a lot happened in the past few years, especially in 2020 with the double Irish disappearing. And I would really like to see more, current issues tackled, and also I'd like to see more of the smaller picture, the more domestic implications, as we discussed before. And here's my references. They're a little small. But in conclusion, Irish taxes were Irish, Ireland was a tax haven. It still is technically considered a tax haven, but that might change in the near future. So look out, Ireland.